everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The DRF race of the day for Sunday, June the 4th is race number 8 at Woodbine. It's the Grade 2 Eclipse. We're going 1 mile and a 16th on the Tapeta surface. This race for 4-year-olds and up. Let's take a peek at this field. Please scan or click the QR code for Race of the Day access on mobile, which includes free Formulator past performances. Mike the 3, Wolfie's Dynaghost, winner of the Kentucky Cup Classic at Turfway. The last time he raced on the all-weather is dropping out of a real tough edition of the Grade 1 Turf Classic at Churchill last time out.
Yeah, ultimately, he's probably not quite as good on turf as he is on the other surfaces. But you mentioned the nice win 2 starts back on the all-weather. He's 3 for 3 in his career on all-weather surfaces. I think he's the horse to beat.
He likes to be forwardly placed. So does the 2 War Bomber, and recently the 7 Treason just seems to pull in the early stages of this race. We might have a fast pace up front. Curious to your thoughts as we throw up the Timeform US pace projector. They have a red bar indicating a fast pace. They have War Bomber as the quickest one. I think if Treason really wants it, he can get it.
Yeah, it's a big problem for Treason in his last couple of starts that he just doesn't really want to seem to settle. I mean, War Bomber is going to be forward. I didn't see him on the lead in here, Dan. I really felt like Wolfie's Dynaghost was fastest early in here if he wants it, but it all comes down to the 7 Treason. If he won't settle, I guess they're just going to have to turn him loose again.
The horse with the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, as indicated by the LP flag over the chiclet, is the sharp number 10, Carruthers. We'll get to him in a bit, but we'll start things off with a horse that would hope for a fast pace up front. That's the number 1, Avo Man. This horse was claimed for $40,000 at the beginning of his 2022 campaign, and he completed it in style with a victory in the Steady Growth Stakes at this 1 mile and a 16th distance. Now, he got up close to a moderate pace in this race. He grinds it out to win. The 4th place horse came back to win a stake at Turfway with a 91 buyer, then ran 3rd in another stake down there with a 91. This is a solid horse facing a really tough group.
Yeah, that's how I looked at him too. I mean, he runs fine in here, and it is a lifetime best speed figure for him. Just kind of had a really soft trip in there to get the job done. And listen, it's not like he's a total slouch, Dan. I mean, they ran him in the Queen's Plate as a 3-year-old. He's got some good races on his card. I just didn't like him that much off the win last time.
The 2 War Bomber has been a very solid horse for most of his career. He won the Grade 3 Seagram Cup last year over course and distance, and he closed out 2022 with a victory in a high-level handicap. We're going to watch that race right now, going 7/8 of a mile, and he's just a versatile horse, Mike. He can win from off the pace, he can win from on the lead, he can win at 1 mile and a 16th, and here he wins sprinting going 7/8.
Yeah, he was good in this race. He got another good trip. He's a very handy horse. That's a real benefit to him. But I really like this performance, Dan. It's basically nothing but good races on his card. I mean, this is a horse who somehow was in for $25,000 as a 3-year-old. He was claimed out of that race. He's run nothing but good races for these connections. He's a huge player in this race. You just have to expect him to show up even off the layoff.
The well-bred number 3, Wolfie's Dynaghost, brings Johnny Velasquez up with him from the United States to Woodbine. This horse ran okay in the Kentucky Cup Classic. I really liked that performance because he was aggressively handled, and I think that's when he's at his best. He set a pressured pace, put away everybody else, and kept right on rolling. In the Turf Classic, they took a handle of him early. He sat in the pocket. Those are just better horses. The runner-up came back to run 3rd in the Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile the other day with a 95 buyer. In many ways, this is the horse to beat. He's gotten better since they gelded him.
Yeah, I think he's the horse to beat too. I really liked his win 2 starts back the last time he was on this surface, Dan. As you mentioned, I mean, he got forward in there. Maybe they weren't intent on the early lead, but a horse made an early move at him, so he just had to pick up and go still on the backstretch, and he managed to do that. Lasted the 9 furlongs pretty easily. That was, to me, a really strong performance. This is a great surface for him. I think he is the horse to beat in here, but it's not like he can just show up and win this race. There are some other good horses in here.
The could be any kind horse in the field is the number 4, Tyson, who made his career debut last year for Todd Pletcher over the synthetic at Gulfstream. He won that race very nicely. He's a beautifully bred son of Tapit. Now, after that race, he missed a ton of time, over a year, but he returned and he showed no rust first time out for the Josie Carroll barn, going 1 mile and a 16th. He was aggressive out of the gate. He set a very reasonable pace. He sprinted on home and he KOs this field in the final 16th.
we'll see, how he handles. This is a pretty significant step up in class for him, Dan. And obviously he's 2 for 2. And so, listen, maybe he could be any kind. I'd have a tough time taking that morning line price on him, not only against this field, but against that race that we just watched there. We showed you the stretch run. He was fine. This horse got absolutely loose on the lead in there with no pressure. That's not happening here. To me, he has to run way better than that. I just think he's a terrible price on the line.
The number 5, Artie Storm, won this race last year, fresh off the layoff. He's going to try to pull off the trick yet again. He was 3rd in his most recent start. That was the steady growth back in December. It was a race that didn't have a lot of pace. They didn't go fast the first quarter. He kind of clunked along for 3rd. He's a solid horse that runs well fresh, and 8 to 1's a fair price.
8 to 1's a very fair price because he does have races that would give him a real chance in here. I mean, to me, he's just kind of inconsistent, and that worries me about him. So obviously, if you're going to bet him, you would hope to get a price like that morning line on him. I get that the pace was perhaps against him the last time we saw him, Dan, but it's not like he was a million miles away from it and got somehow unlucky in there. I just didn't think that he ran that well. And was no real factor. But again, he has other races on his card that would make him really tough in here.
Big price on the morning line for the 6, Bringer of Rain. And I think the connections just used that most recent race, a sprint, to get some fitness into this horse. He is more of a 2-turn specialist. I think he's going to appreciate stretching out. But the major question is not distance. It's whether he's good enough to compete with these tougher horses.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of doesn't look like he is on paper. I'm with you on his most recent start. That felt like a prep to me. And now they're going to step him way up in class. He's still never run a race in his life that makes him competitive against this field.
Treason, the number 7, came off of a lengthy layoff. First time for Josie Carroll last year, and he exploded to a 101 Beyer speed figure, just blasting out to the front, setting a loose lead and drawing away to win by 100 lengths. His most recent start was the autumn, and I think the race looks a little bit better than it does on paper because he had to battle it out with Mighty Heart, who we all know in the early part of that race, and he pulled. They must have gone the first quarter 23 and change, second quarter 23 and change. He then opens up on everybody and he gets tired at the end. He still galloped out pretty well. I think this horse has talent. The problem is he can be his own worst enemy.
Yeah, that's the real issue for him. You're right. Listen, he got hooked up with a really good horse on the pace last time, but he only got hooked up because he refused to settle in that race. And you could see his rider just take a huge hold of him and try to get him to back down. And he refused to do it. They finally had to let him go, contest the pace. He still ran really well. He was really impressive when he won that allowance race off the long layoff, but he even pulled that day. He would not rate on the lead. So we'll just see how handy he can ultimately become. I've always liked this horse. I really liked it when Mott had him as a turf horse. He's still lightly raced. You just hope that he figures things out eventually because he's good.
The number 8, Conglomerate, wintered at Gulfstream Park, so he has the recency edge over several of these horses, and he scored at Woodbine, returning to the surface in this race last time out. This is a high-level allowance field. There wasn't a ton of pace in here as well. Opening quarter 25, 49 and 2. He still comes widest and fastest to win. He is probably in the form of his career right now, but this is a giant step up into the graded stakes, running in his stakes debut. He's hoping for a fast pace. Maybe he can clunk up for a piece at a big price.
It does feel like this race could set up for him. I'm with you. I feel like he is in the best form of his life, Dan. Does he have to take another step forward in here? He most likely does. But I liked that win last time. He might get a trip in here. I could use this horse at a price.
Luckman finished behind Conglomerate last time out. He didn't have the cleanest trip in that race. It was his first start back. I'm expecting this horse to take a step forward. He did win the Toronto Cup last year, going a 1-turn mile on the turf. So he is proven against stakes competition. He's going to need a trip, and he's probably going to need to take a step forward. But the last race was okay considering the layoff.
Another horse that could benefit if this pace gets fast in front of him. Ultimately, I didn't really feel like he was good enough to play a major part in this race, Dan, but maybe it'll come back to him a little bit and he can get a piece of it. I respect the job they've done with him since they've claimed him. I just felt like he was in really, really tough here, second off the layoff.
The number 10 Carruthers blossomed over Gulfstream's Tapeta surface over the winter. He's now won 3 consecutive races, and he ships up after this performance last time out, going a mile and 70 yards, where he just assumes the lead very, very easily at even money and kicks clear with a 92 Beyer speed figure. He loves the all-weather. He's won 7 of 11 in his career over this surface. And again, he's now stepping up in class. How good is he? But I think he has enough tactical speed where he's not a true one-run closer. Maybe he can settle in mid-pack.
Yeah, I think that's possible. Man, you do really want to see him run one of his good races up in class and on this turf course, on this synthetic course as well, Dan. I mean, he's really good on the Gulfstream one. They shipped him up here last year, though, to run him in a grade 3 off of another really nice and fast win, and he was nowhere.
I believe Rondur is one of the sleepers in this race. I really liked his performance last year in the Marine, a graded stakes race for 3-year-olds leading up to the Queen's Plate. He didn't run well in the Queen's Plate. He didn't run well in his subsequent start. They kicked him out. His 2 races this year have shown promise, including this performance cutting back to 7/8 of a mile last time out, where he rallies and kicks them all down in the stretch from the far outside. He's still getting better. He's still lightly raced. He still has a lot of upside. I do wonder if maybe he'll eventually be better at slightly shorter distances like the 7/8 of a mile, but I think he fits in a field like this if he shows up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I mean, I'm a little unsure that he's going to keep getting better over longer distances. Although I'll admit he deserves the chance to do it. Obviously, he did look good winning that Marine over this distance last year. He kind of feels like he's a better sprinter to me, but I have no argument with anybody who likes him in this race. It's a tough race, though.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Belmont Stakes next week. We're going to be busy, so subscribe and don't miss a thing. Top pick time for our Sunday race of the day. We see it the same way, but it's all about whether Treason settles, whether it's on the lead or whether just off of another horse. From what we've seen in his last 2 starts, it doesn't look like he can. So maybe I'm just hoping for a down-the-road speed show.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because the weird thing about him, Dan, is he was pretty handy earlier in his career on turf, Vermont. I mean, he wasn't a speed crazy horse. I don't know what's going on since they switched surfaces. Maybe he'll ultimately settle. I took him mostly hoping the morning line price holds, and we'll see if it holds. It may not, but at 6-1, if that price holds, I would bet him in here and just see what happens.
We're both going 7-3. We respect Wolfie's Dynaghost. He faced very tough competition last time out, and he's probably better on the synthetic than he is on the turf anyway. 7-3-2-5 for Mike, 7-3-4-2 for me. Really good addition of our Sunday race of the day. It is the Grade 3 Eclipse. Good luck.